Hi, my name is Winsay, and welcome to my Voidtech Doctrine tier list. At the beginning of April, I posted my complete Doctrine tier list, which looks like this. And today, I'm going to be going into why I placed each of the Voidtech Doctrines where I did. While I expect that future expansions and patches will change how good some of these doctrines are and add a few others, the doctrines kept the values that they had when the game first launched up until the Tyrannosaurus patch, so for about 9 months, and I expect that these numbers will stay the same for a while now. Even if they do change, I think that these tier lists will remain useful, especially to new players who just want to know generally what is a good doctrine, when to take it, and why. There are 97 doctrines that I could find in the game, and while I would love to talk about them all in one video, I decided to break them into smaller, more digestible segments like this one. The first doctrine we're going to talk about is Echo Protocols, which is in the A tier because, well, it's a really good doctrine. It provides you with some nice economic bonuses very early on in the game, which means those economic bonuses will translate into a mid-game advantage and then a late-game advantage. And yeah, if you're playing Voidtech, I'd recommend you get this enacted as quickly as possible. Now, before we talk too much about it, I think it would be helpful if we hop on over to the game and look it up in the Imperial Archives. So yeah, let's go do that now. What does Echo Protocols do? So Echo Protocols will make it so that all of your colonies will produce a little bit more food, energy, production, or research, depending on where you have your colonists. If you've got them all on food, they're going to make one more food per person working it. So instead of making 5 food per worker, they'll make 6 food per worker. Or if you want to have them on production, they can maybe make 6 production instead of 5 production. And there are other ways to increase how much their base value is. So you can take it from like 7 research up to 9 research per worker, and that's very nice. It scales very nicely even in the late game. Getting a little bit more energy or a little bit more production from this doctrine will help you do some things like get more units out or research more units a little bit quicker. So yeah, I think we're ready to now compare this doctrine to the ones that are around it on my complete tier list. And to do that, I'm just going to pull this up really quickly and find it. Looks like it's next to, I think that's Economist with the bar graph. And then Armament Protocols, Phoenix Armament Protocols. Let's try and find the Empire Quest thing first. So back to here. And the bar graph is the Economist. The Economist got a bit of a nerf because it is so good. It's really nice having this little bonus to your raw resource production. Every colony that you build will have a basic structure in the center that will make either food, energy, research, or production. And by getting plus 10 of those base resources, you'll have a nice strong economy. But it did drop down from 15 to 10, making it slightly less competitive. And I think now you could make the argument that it's worse than Echo Protocols, but I still feel like that plus 10 across the board in all of your places is very valuable, especially if you get this in the early game, to the point that I would say it's better than Echo Protocols, but maybe not. I'd love to know your thoughts on this one, actually, if I should be dropping it down further based on that nerf that they put on this doctrine recently. And to the right, we have Armament Protocols, which makes it so that units are a little bit cheaper to make. And then also once you have them, their upkeep is less. So basically you're going to save some money on energy here, but will you save more energy from this, or would you make more money from Echo Protocols? I think you could argue if you put all of your guys in energy, then you would save, then you'd make more money in Echo Protocols than you would save from Phoenix Armament Protocols. But I think what really makes Echo Protocols better is its what's the word I'm thinking about? It has a lot of range of options. It has diversity. It can go in a couple different directions. This has to go towards making your armies cheaper. You can maybe make Echo protocols benefit your research or benefit how quickly your colonies grow their pops. So it's more adaptable. It's more flexible. I think that was the word I was thinking of. So yeah, I think now we can jump on over to the next one in our tier list, which is quantum energy tapping. And I'm pretty sure I know what that does. I think it gives you more energy, but I want to see how much it gives me. Yeah, here we go. It gives me plus 20% energy, which is a lot of extra energy. That isn't going to be as competitive as Echo protocols because Echo protocols has those options available to it. It can adjust to what you need. But not only that, this comes later on and it's very inaccessible. You're going to spend 200 energy on it as a result, so you get plus 20% energy, which means you better save 200 energy very quickly, or else it's just not worth it. Spending 200 energy, if you've got 200 energy on hand, you probably should be using on building a unit or an operation or something along those lines. But if you want to spend it on making more energy later, that could be great. It could just lead to the AI deciding that it wants to steal all of your energy, which isn't that much fun when they do that. Now, I think we can compare this to what we have on either side of it. I want to pull up the complete tier list just to see where it is on my list of things. And it looks like it's got Society 2.0 off to the right. And then it's got, is that Warmonger or the independent one? I think it's the independent one off to the left of it. So yeah, that's let's go find our 2.0 to compare this to, and then the proper Empire Quest. So Society 2.2, there we go. That one will give you plus 10 happiness and plus 10% energy. It's pretty similar actually to quantum energy tapping, but I decided that it's slightly worse because the happiness will allow you to get more happiness events, which will give you kind of a random result. You might get more energy, you might get more cosmite, you might get influence, and that can be really, really useful, or it can be useless. And I think just having a little guaranteed extra energy is slightly better, unless you're facing somebody who's stealing all of your energy. Then you can definitely argue that quantum energy tapping or you can argue that Society 2.2 is better than quantum energy tapping. They both cost 200 energy, so it's a big investment of energy. And yeah, it kind of turns energy into something else if you're going to be using Society 2.0. It turns energy into happiness, which is not bad. Okay, yeah, Invader's what we want to look at next. So how does Invader compare? Invader is very different. It gives you morale in battles against independent units. So if you're facing up against another commander, this doesn't affect that at all. If you're facing up against, I think NPC units count, and anything that's like neutral on the map, or marauders, I think they all count as independent. So you can get lots and lots of critical strikes against them, making those fights a lot easier. And I think that you want to implement this as quickly as possible, unless you don't have morale on your units. If you have a bunch of mindless units, then yeah, ignore this. But it's very valuable. It's very different than the other two doctrines we were just talking about. Those two have more to do with economy, and they're kind of separate. But I think this one is slightly more useful, so slightly ahead of the others. Okay. So what's next on our list? We have the Quantum Project down in the C tier. So let's pull that up, see what the Quantum Project gives us. So it'll give us a little bit more research in our colonies for every sector, research sector that's linked to it. So if you've got 2 research sectors, then all of a sudden that thing's making 30 more research if you got one. It's 15 more research if you got none. It's no more research though. It's okay. It's kind of nice, but I feel like spending 200 energy to get a little bit more research in the late game is just not a great decision. You wouldn't be doing this in the early game because it's a tier 7 tech, or its accessibility is 7, meaning you won't get it until like the mid to late game, and at that point you really don't need to be focusing on research. You should probably be focusing on energy production and production again to get your armies out there and moving around. I mean, food's okay in the early game, but yeah, once you get into the late game, ignore that a little bit. Now, what do we have around the quantum project? Let's go back over here and see what it is. So that's it down there. It's right behind. Is that sadistic indoctrination? I think it is. And it's not forced infection. We might have to look these ones up to make sure we get the right doctrines to compare it to. I think that is sadistic indoctrination, so we'll go look that one up first. Yeah, so this one will allow your non-mindless units to do more damage to units that have their morale lowered, which means that most of your units will do damage to the units that they can lower morale on, which may be all of them, it may be none of them. Depends on who you're fighting and if they're trying to counter your strategy. If they can get lots of mindless units and they're fighting psi number, they're probably going to consider it, considering how much psi number rely on affecting things like morale. But it is very nice. That plus 25% damage is very nice if you can apply it. And that's why it's slightly ahead of what we're looking at. Quantum Project. Quantum Project is an economy thing. I think combat doctrines are generally better, especially than these doctrines that boost your your research production. So now we have to go check our Xenoplague stuff. It is organic mutation research. That's the one I'm looking for. So let's try and find that in my list of things. Organic mutation research. Yes, so this also boosts your ability to produce research. Of course, this doesn't need research sectors to get research. You could just have workers making research or generating research to get this to apply to the research that you're making in your colonies. So it's a little bit more applicable, but I think the bonuses that you're going to get are probably less unless you focus on putting this in places with research sectors. And even then, it's I think it's questionable, right? I think they're both tier 7 things, and they're both affecting your research, so it's debatable which one's better than the other. I think they're both pretty awful, to be honest. They belong this far down on the tier list. Now, do we have anything left? Is that it? I think we have one more left. It was... Yes, we have one more down in D tier. We have to talk about Preventative Surveillance next. I don't think I like that one. I mean, it is in D tier, so probably not, right? We were looking at this, right? Yeah, okay. I went over to the game. So this one, we'll give it our scout units and colonies will have a little bit more vision and sensor range, and our non-scout units also get a little bit more sensor and vision range. The scout units and colonies get 2, the non-scout units get +1. I don't find it that hard to find enemies and scout them out with like the basic sensor and vision range. I guess this could be kind of nice if you wanted to play carefully, but I just don't see it being that useful. Like, it is semi-useful in certain situations, but I just don't see it being worth spending a whole doctrine slot on. Now let's compare it to what we have around it. What is on this near our last doctrine? Oh, it's underneath my face, isn't it? Yeah, so it is right after the Empire quest there, and right before this Empire quest. There's one with like a chess piece and one with a flag. So the one with the chess piece is slightly better. Let's go find him first. The chess piece is operator, and then we'll go to conqueror to compare all three of those. Operator will give you, well, it makes it so that your covert and strategic operations are 25% cheaper. That's awesome. You can cast them more often. You can spend some energy to make it easier to spend energy on your covert operations and strategic operations. I don't know. I guess if you're going to invest a lot in covert operations and strategic operations, this could be a cool thing to implement earlier rather than later, but it's not my playstyle. I don't think it's a great use of a doctrine slot, and I'd recommend you look into other things. Alright, conquer. This will make it so that your commander and heroes will make it so enemies lose morale. So, okay, that could be cool. Maybe they don't get impacted by morale. If they don't, then this is useless. If they do, then they're probably gonna fumble a lot, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty useful, but you have to keep that in mind that they may not be affected by morale. So yeah, maybe this is slightly better than the other ones. I think it's fine where it is. And yeah, I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on my tier list. I'll see you around. Have a good one.